On Friday, the 16th June 2023, the submersible Titan would embark on an expedition to the Titanic shipwreck, which would polarize the world into various factions. On board were 5 acclaimed billionaires who descended in what was to be a 2-hour excursion at 8 a.m. to the depths of the Titanic shipwreck, approximately 3,800 meters below. At approximately 9:45 a.m., the submersible and the MV Polar Prince, the mothership, would lose contact after 1 hour and 45 minutes had lapsed. The news outlets would be awash with a devastating headline. The whole world would be fraught with panic and concerted efforts of the US, Canada, and France, who would frantically embark on a mission to rescue those on board the submersible. On 19th June 2023, officials claimed that there was an estimated 70 to 96 hours of oxygen left. An audio would thereafter be leaked detecting banging sounds. They would continue to detect underwater noises. Unfortunately, on June 22nd, 2023, the passenger's fate would be sealed as the debris of the Titan submersible would be found following an implosion. A trail of questions lingered my mind. More specifically, was all this avoidable? I would find myself gripped with unparalleled emotion as I read about the whistleblower who foreshadowed this event. In May 2015, David Lockridge was hired by Oceangate and was touted as the best man for the job, given his prodigious background as a submarine pilot and training on the same, including accredited certification as an underwater inspector. Upon his appointment, he would be charged with the responsibilities of Director of Marine Operations, whose mandate it was to recognize flaws and failures in subsea equipment in a bid to ensure the safety of all crew and clients during the submersible's excursions. As Director of the Marine Operations, he would be deeply entrenched in Cyclops 2, known widely as the Titan, that Oceangate was in the process of an iteration cycle for an experimental submersible. He would grapple with concerns that could have possibly averted the loss. These concerns included the fact that Titan would take a tangent from the recommended manufacturing design and construction, as the Titan's hull would be made of carbon fiber, a notable shift from the metallic composition. The Titan would also punch above its weight in conducting excursions to a depth of 4,000 meters. This depth was regarded perilous for a submersible composed of carbon fiber. Oceangate would hold a meeting to hand over Titan from the engineering department to Lockridge's department. At the meeting, quality control concerns were raised on the submersive Titan. The CEO, Stockton Rush, called for quality control inspection of the submersible. Lockridge would embark on a quest to consolidate all research on the Titan in a bid to submit an inspection report. Nonetheless, Lockridge would conclude the quality control inspection report on January 28, 2018. He would address the reluctance to supply him with information by the engineering department and executive management, and equally their nonchalant stance in addressing safety concerns of the Titan. This inspection report would unearth a bombshell that would ultimately lead to not only his unfair dismissal due to an alleged disclosing of confidential information, but also to loss of lives. Lockridge would fervently implore Oceangate to conduct a non-destructive test that would be performed on the hull of the Titan. The non-destructive testing was considered vital so as to detect potential existing flaws prior to applying pressure on the hull. Whilst Lockridge expressed the dangers of failing to conduct the hull test, he was unceasingly informed that there was no form of equipment that existed to perform such a test. He was told that no scan of the hull or bond line could be conducted to examine delaminations, porosity, and the adhesion glue used due to the thickness of the hull. Oceangate would remain recalcitrant and die on the hill, relying on the acoustic monitoring systems and the real-time hull health monitoring system installed that would detect the start of the hull breakdown, signaling the submersible was likely to fail. However, this acoustic analysis would only show signals of failure, allegedly just milliseconds before an implosion. Depth: further debilitating feature of the Titan was the viewport of the submersible. Whilst the Titan was only built to withstand a certified pressure of 1,300 meters, Oceangate would push the envelope and not only claim but represent that Titan would defy the odds and embark on an excursion to the depths of 4,000 meters, and in particular the expedition to the Titanic shipwreck, 3,800 meters. Oceangate, by embarking on such a mission to such depths, was tantamount to flouting the pressure vessels for human occupancy standards. Whilst Lockridge implored the engineering department for information regarding the viewport, he will discover that the repeated denial of access to information was because the viewport manufacturer had only certified the Titan would withstand a depth of 1,300 meters due to its design. He would equally unearth that Oceangate had refused to pay for the manufacturer to build a viewport that would be required to meet the depth of 4,000 meters. He would caution on the potential dangers the submersible would risk as it reached such extreme depths. This is because of constant pressure cycling, which weakens the existing floors, resulting in colossal tears of the carbon fiber. These words would ultimately ring true. Oceangate, however, would unequivocally assert that the Titan had conducted 90 dives, and 13 of these dives reached the depth of the Titanic at the time of announcing the ill-fated excursion to the Titanic shipwreck.
I'd like to be remembered as an innovator. I think it was General MacArthur said, "You're remembered for the rules you break." And I've broken some rules to make this.
There has been criticism of the
Lockridge would incessantly raise regulatory and certification concerns. Despite all his efforts, it would be an exercise in futility. He would implore Oceangate to employ the services of a classification agency such as the American Bureau of Shipping or the Norwegian firm DNV-GL to inspect and certify the Titan. Will Conan, the chairman of peer review group, the Marine Technology Society, stated that roughly out of 10 submersibles diving to the Titanic shipwreck, only Oceangate was uncertified. The CEO, Stockton Rush, would posit an argument for his actions, citing that in bringing a third party and outside entity up to speed on every innovation before it is put into the real-world testing is an anathema to rapid innovation. Oceangate would be castigated again by Maritime Technology Society for its misrepresentations and misleading statements to the public about the safety standards of the Titan, thereby breaching the industry-wide professional code of conduct. This is because Oceangate allegedly advertised Titan's design would meet or exceed the DNV-GL safety standards. However, Oceangate flouted the DNV-GL class rules. Oceangate would unequivocally state that the Titan destined for the Titanic shipwreck expedition was not approved or certified by any regulatory body. Given that there was loss of lives and wreckage of the Titan, was there any legal recourse? What jurisdiction would apply? Did the victims' families have any recourse? I grappled with such questions, and here's what I think. Jurisdiction. An eerie question has lingered among scholars regarding which country has jurisdiction in regards to the submersible Titan, in what seems as an attempt at skirting US regulations through intricate, complex company structures. This is drawn from the fact that Oceangate had different company structures. Oceangate Inc., the parent company, was an American company that was based in Washington, with a subsidiary company, Oceangate Expeditions Limited, that launched the ill-fated excursion to the Titanic shipwreck, was registered in a high-risk jurisdiction, the Bahamas. There was equally a third company, Oceangate Non-Profit. More jurisdictions came into play as the Titan submersible belonged to a former Canadian Coast Guard icebreaker, the MV Polar Prince. Moreover, a further determinant of the jurisdiction would be the nationalities of the casualties of the Titan submersible. Lastly, the Titan shipwreck was discovered located at a depth of 3,800 meters, about 304 nautical miles off the coast of the Newfoundland, Canada, on the high seas, which ropes in Article 89 of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, which states that no state may validly purport to subject any part of the high seas to its sovereignty. Thus, we have three companies that are registered in different jurisdictions. We have the Titan submersible that basically belonged to Canada, and that the fact that the whole ordeal occurred in the high seas, which no one has jurisdiction to. However, all this would be put to rest in the liability waiver. The liability waiver would settle the quagmire, as it expressly stated that any disputes relating to or arising from the expedition would be governed by the laws of Bahamas, which was where Oceangate Expeditions Limited, the subsidiary of Ocean Inc., was registered. Nonetheless, the U.S. Coast Guard has launched a maritime board investigation considered the highest level of investigation in tandem with Canada's Transportation and Safety Board, which has equally launched investigations. Moreover, the MV Polar Prince that launched the submersible Titan has equally launched investigations. The most contentious issue would be in regards to the liability waivers. Lockridge would argue that at the time, this is in 2018, in his counterclaim, he would argue that the failure of carrying out tests on the hull and its implications that could lead to an implosion, the actual certified depth of the Titan that the Titan would withstand, and the lack of regulations was not made aware to the passengers. This was in 2018. However, in the excursion to the Titanic shipwreck, the passengers signed a liability waiver, and this would be what would be aptly stated in it. The liability waiver would entail the following provisions: that the submersible Titan was not approved nor certified by any regulatory body. 2. That the Titan was constituted of materials that had not been widely used for manned submersibles. 3. That the Titan was not specifically designed for passenger operation. 4. That the voyage will take place in international waters, a great distance from nearest hospital or rescue personnel, and that attaining medical attention would be difficult. The waiver also encouraged passengers to have their own health insurance. 5th, that the waiver would also say that it was voluntarily, and that those who consented to had full knowledge of all the inherent risks that could potentially lead to death, which was mentioned more than 3 times, and that by consenting, they escapade liability from Oceangate Inc., Oceangate Expeditions Limited, and Oceangate Non-Profit Organization from claims such as negligence. The question therefore lingers whether the family's victims had a recourse in the law. Some scholars have argued that they may have a recourse under the Death of the High Seas Act, with the cause of action being a claim for wrongful death due to Oceangate's negligence. But to prove negligence, they would have to prove that there was a reasonable duty of care owed, that there was a breach of that duty, that the breach of that duty is a proximate cause to the loss of lives, and that the families have suffered damages. Given that Oceangate has a perceived ironclad liability waiver, do they have any other legal loophole? It's believed, or rather there are reports that have emerged, that Oceangate could try to limit its liability under the Limitation of Liability Act, which seeks to protect ship owners' liability in the case of a casualty only to the value of the ship. However, there's a caveat that the ship owners cannot rely on this law if they had knowledge of the negligence that caused the casualty. Therefore, let me know in the comments whether you think the victims have any recourse, or whether Oceangate can utilize a different legal loophole.